Just want to say good evening to our listening audience. This is Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District, Chairman of the Baltimore City Senate Delegation, and just want to say that I'm honored and privileged to be here with you today. Just want to say thank you for joining us tonight for the City Senate Delegation's weekly virtual grassroots briefing. Before we get started, just want to at least acknowledge our senator that is with us here today. Currently, we have Senator Antonio Hayes. We also have Senator Carter that has joined us from the 41st Legislative District. We're also joined by Senator Bill Ferguson from the 46th Legislative District, and Senator Sidnor in Washington will be joining us momentarily. We are in for a treat tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We are joined by two of our most important people in the Baltimore at this moment. We are going to be joined by our Mayor, Brandon Scott, who is currently with us, and City Comptroller, Bill Henry. First and foremost, we are thankful for their continued partnership and grateful that they could join us tonight. Tonight marks our last grassroots briefing of the Baltimore City Senate Delegation of the 2021 legislative session. And I would just like to thank my colleagues for joining us in this endeavor. And colleagues, if we can, at this moment, just wanted to take the time to recognize Cody Dorsey. He has been a stalwart that has helped us navigate a number of these our grassroots briefings, our voting sessions, and things of that nature. Just wanted to take the opportunity to lift up Cody because he's made sure that we've all been involved, engaged in this process and sent a number of reminders. But I think that he's also got the full-fledged Annapolis experience. For those that may be joining us for the first time, we've heard about a number of issues, including those that have affected small businesses, education, housing security, about equity in our courts, the status of Preakness in Pimlico, and from leading health professionals. We hope that these briefings have been helpful in retrieving vital information, but they've also been very helpful for us tonight. So the order of tonight's program, introductions for Mayor Scott and Comptroller Henry. Then we'll hear from them both. The mayor will join us for the first 25 minutes, and we will have questions for him, and then we'll move to our comptroller. Now I'll just go into the introductions of our 52nd mayor. Mayor Brandon Scott, our 52nd mayor of Baltimore, working to end gun violence, restore public trust in government, and change Baltimore for the better. Prior to being elected mayor, Brandon served as president of the Baltimore City Council, releasing a comprehensive legislative agenda focused on safer communities and ethics in government while investing in our youth. Having been elected to the City Council in 2011, he is one of the youngest people ever elected to that body, and I'm proud to call him my friend and our mayor. Next, we'll have, just the introduction of our comptroller. Comptroller Bill Henry previously served 3 terms on Baltimore City Council, representing North and Northeast Baltimore. Bill practically grew up in City Hall, first serving as an interim in the mayor's office and then later in the City Council president's office. He worked his way through from legislative director to chief of staff to the council president. In between tours of duty in City Hall, he worked as a congressional aide and a legislative aide in Annapolis. Under his leadership, the Office of Comptroller will focus on modernizing systems to increase accessibility and accountability. Gentlemen, we all thank you for joining us today. Mayor Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and thank you to the entire delegation for allowing me to be here, but more importantly, for the great work that you all do every day, but especially during session on behalf of the citizens of Baltimore and all of Maryland. Now, before I get into it, Senator McCray, I would just like to just say that, of course, Cody Dorsey has you guys going the right way because he's a graduate of the St. Mary's College of Maryland, and that's what we do. We do best is produce greatness. But in all seriousness, I think when I think about these 100 plus days now, I think about coming into office on a platform of governing through transparency, integrity, equity, and accountability. And what we have spent a lot of time doing is in order to win, you have to have the team. And we pulled together an all-star team to help ensure that these goals are upheld and that we work to implement the necessary programs and reforms to see them through. While I would love to give out a shout out to all the members on my team, I only have a few minutes, so I highlight a key few hires to deliver that effective, reliable, and equitable service to city residents that I talk about a lot. I brought on our first city administrator, Chris Shorter, on board, coming here via Austin, Texas, but also has led agencies in DC to lead our efforts on fixing our water billing system and bringing Baltimore in alignment with zero waste and dealing with the trash issues. I'm bringing on Dr. Jason Mitchell to serve as the Department of Public Works. We are bringing him from Oakland, a city similar to Baltimore in many aspects, and he has done great work there and created opportunity for people through his work there. And we're looking forward to having him here to oversee housing, planning, workforce, and community development. We've hired Ted Carter to serve as the deputy mayor for community and economic development. Ted is coming to us from Cleveland, and as I told him today, we know the last time Baltimore took something from Cleveland, we won the Super Bowl twice. So we're expecting to win the Super Bowl in economic development in our neighborhoods through his leadership. And to ensure that we apply equity to every aspect of city governance, making sure the people in places most overlooked in Baltimore see themselves and their communities reflected in our local government. I appointed Dana Moore as our first chief equity officer, and everyone here in Baltimore knows Dana Moore. And to oversee our portfolio of agencies, including quality of life, equity, recreation and parks, health, and library services, we've appointed Faith Leach to serve as deputy mayor for equity, health, and human services. And we're looking forward to her coming on, knowing that we are in a moment where this pandemic has caused the world to look at, senators, there's the digital divide that we knew existed here in Baltimore for a long time, but to bring it up to the level of the mayor's office. I appointed Jason Harderback as the city's first chief of broadband and digital equity to make sure that we're moving those things in the right way and to oversee the city's first open checkbook, where much to the comptroller's pleasure, have appointed Justin Elzayas as the city's new chief data officer. Sorry, and we, last but not least, because we are talking about curing Baltimore of a disease known as gun violence and violence in our city, I appointed Shante Jackson to serve as the director of Mayor's Office, Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. This office is not only going to oversee the law enforcement portions and roles in our communities and when dealing with violence and safety, but also working with our community partners and other agencies to play a more active role in the co-production of public safety and prevention of violence through a trauma responsive, healing centered, and equity based approach for the benefit of all Baltimoreans. And on that note, we released the Violence Prevention and Framework Plan that recognizes violence as a public health issue, one that it must be addressed through community engagement and collaboration between community and between agencies. Director Jackson has embarked on a virtual community tour to discuss the plan and hear from the most important people, the residents and stakeholders on that plan. It's important our communities have a voice as we go through developing the plan's implementation. Because as one of my former colleagues would say, you don't ask the doctor if the medicine is working, you ask the patient. Additionally, we have established a public safety advisory commission. I want to thank Senator Hayes for first allowing us to do that a few years ago when he was a Delegate Hayes. That commission has 11 community representatives from around the city, each police district, and they're going to be working every day to help our city become a safer city. And we also have to understand, and this is something that we all have talked about for many, 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 many years. We have to, and we are now getting out of this mindset that we're going to police our way solely out of the problems that our city has, and that we have to now think about how we can deal with gun violence in its totality. And one of the ways that we have been shaking that responsibility, in my opinion, is that we have not been going after the individuals who have been bringing in the weapons into our city. We have to, understanding that 63% of the guns that we recovered last year were purchased outside the state of Maryland. That's a fact that's alarming and unacceptable. And to help combat that, I partnered with Everytown for Gun Safety and a process developed in part by our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Sonny Schnitzer, for a first of its kind data intelligence tool to identify illegal firearm traffickers, to help solve crimes and eliminate gun trafficking, something that we've never really focused on. And my administration also, we're going to be committed and remain committed to the consent decree, having those meetings and processes with our consent decree monitor and the judge be strengthened. My office has restarted police stat meetings with the police commissioner and his team to make sure that we're holding them accountable. But I want to be clear that, again, we're not just looking at police-oriented solutions. So many of our calls to 911 receive a response that they shouldn't. They should receive a response from a clinician, not a police officer. And we're on the cusp. We're that close of implementing a cutting-edge 911 diversion pilot program with our healthcare partners. This measure, which is similar to legislation that Senator Van Hollen is advocating for in Washington, will ensure that we are sending the most appropriate resources when our neighbors call for assistance. And this, again, is only the beginning of our work. And I want to thank you all for leading on our priorities in Annapolis. We know about local control. We know about transportation, the work that you guys have done for Visit Baltimore, for Bernie. I just want to say thank you as I close and take your questions, but know that your hard work throughout this session, a challenging session in the times that we're in, does not go unnoticed by me and will not go unnoticed by the citizens of Baltimore.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. First, I want to acknowledge that our colleague, Senator Sidnor, with the fresh haircut, has joined us from the 44th Legislative District. Questions, colleagues, at this moment for Mayor Scott. I see Senator Carter. Senator Carter. Senator.
You're on mute, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mayor Scott. And thank you so much for addressing the issue that we have to look at the sources of guns, the roots of where they're coming from, and the large volume dealers, the wholesalers, the importers. It's very similar to what was overlooked in the drug trade, which is why we didn't win a war on drugs. But a couple things. It's important. I often wonder where it would be today if the Gun Trace Task Force actually traced the roots of guns. That's something that we really missed. I want to just let you know there's two studies. I had a study a couple of years ago that came up with some recent data, and I'm happy to share it with you. It was the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention has the report posted. And then a more elaborate study is ongoing that was reauthorized this year. So I just want to make you aware that our efforts to look at the sources of gun crimes, and the goal of these studies in large part is to trace the crime gun, the gun found in criminal activity, to its origins, to figure out, where things went wrong, because we know that it's not the legal, the straw purchasers in Maryland. That's not nearly beginning to get to the issue. But that being said, and I'm gonna, as soon as we get off or later tonight, I'm gonna send your office a copy of the one report that we just got done. It only came out a couple of weeks ago. And the other thing is, I was disheartened, as many people in Baltimore probably are today, to learn that Ida B's is closing. And it made me think that so many of the businesses around City Hall and downtown that maybe couldn't quickly and easily transition to delivery services are going to be suffering long-term, especially when we don't imagine that offices are going to return to what we knew as the normal, going into the office 5 days a week. And so I think it's important to try to figure out ways that we can stimulate business for these downtown places like Ida B's, and also to make sure that we get something else good in that location. That's going to be super important. Do you have any thoughts about that? Are you doing anything regarding, how we're going to stimulate that downtown economy with so many people now, especially during the workday, maybe not going downtown?
Yeah, thank you for that, Senator. And I actually was shocked. I actually got crab soup from there last week or like the week before, and no one said, they didn't say a word even to me. But I think you bring up a critical point, and this is something that I talked to the deputy mayor about earlier too. It's all we're going to have to. One of the things that we have to do is we're going through this period where we're going to, and it's not just a Baltimore thing, across the country, reimagining what office space and downtown space looks like. This is about one of the things that, I mean, Senator Hayes actually did some of this work when he was a deputy mayor, looking at even from the city agency perspective, making sure that we are putting our agencies in places where they should be, looking at our footprint, the office space that the city has, and helping the city be a quote unquote starting point for investing in buildings where office space is going to be available, so that we can possibly offload buildings that we no longer need and probably should have gotten rid of a long time ago, so that we're putting feet on the street. But it's also about being creative about how we support these businesses with funding and opportunity to change their models. And you'll hear, even in the next few days, you hear about some unique things that we're doing to help people, even for things simple, Senator, like a lot of them didn't have the capability to take payment on their website online, which in this world is like a necessity. All of those kind of things. And even as we look at how we're going to be using, I've told our team, as we look at the ARP funds, this is about helping people, businesses, especially those who've been left behind, not only make it out of this pandemic, but improve themselves so that we can improve the city. So we're looking forward to all that. I do want to comment on the other thing really quickly, Senator McCray, if I can. Senator, the thing that we developed, the system that we developed, pulls all of the data, state, ATF, all of it into one. I would love to show it to you guys, but I can't. We're actually working with Senator Van Hollen to hopefully get the T. Hart Amendment taken away in a bill that he has been the champion for many years, so that we can break down that barrier. Because what would have taken detectives weeks and weeks and weeks, they can do it for us in a click. And you'll be able to see that we all know that someone who lives in Hampton, Virginia, who bought 10 guns and all 10 of them ended up in the use of a crime in Baltimore, no one's that unlucky that all 10 of their guns get stolen and they end up here. We know what's happening. We now have the ability, and we're going to go after those people and look at holding them accountable.
Good news.
Senator Carter, no follow-up. I'll go to Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was trying to avoid doing a Senator Benson this evening. To Senator Carter's point, Downtown Partnership, in which I sit as a board member, is also doing some extraordinary work through that Boost program, which is awesome. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for leading that opportunity. Mr. Mayor, I've sat through, quite a few mayors, not as many as Bill Henry, but I will tell you, like, in every new administration, typically the mayor is forced to be more present in Annapolis to make sure that, everybody's on board and knowing what's going on. The fact that, you hired Natasha Mayhew and the team that you've kind of put together, I haven't seen that necessity as much as I've seen in every single administration that I've had. So I think it's definitely a huge testament to the group of people that you're surrounding yourself with in administration, and big ups to Natasha and the work that they're doing. I guess the theme of the night, piggybacking off of Senator Carter, is really around like some of these small businesses and building Black wealth. I think, even beyond COVID, there's still going to be a need to empower communities. I know one of the things that the state has tried to do unsuccessfully, and I would ask that the city investigating it and looking at opportunities, whereas you could have some type of revolving loan fund or something like that, that small businesses can have access to capital, especially those businesses of color. And I think the first place to start is the financial institutions and where the city put its deposits, to leverage those deposits to make for more investments with CDFIs and other mission-based financial institutions. There's been a lot of work this session. Some of our colleagues, whether it be Delegate Smith and Delegate Learman and others, have tried to introduce new forms of ways to do business that we can leverage our financial institutions to help out. I don't think all of those efforts will be successful, but I do think this unique time we have an opportunity to explore some of those things at the local level to support some of our small businesses, especially those businesses of color. So definitely please count me in, and any thoughts and thinking about that. I think we have a unique opportunity here in the city, but more important, I just want to say thank you for the team that you've put together, Natasha, and everyone that I've come in contact with this administration has been very focused on getting results done. So thank you.
Thank you. And Senator, there's no doubt about it that Natasha is a bona fide superstar, and it's her team. And I think, to be quite honest, that for me, the thing that you should notice about their team that makes it them flow seamlessly is that it's all women. So they don't have to deal with stubborn, bone-headed men. So they're able to do their work and be very efficient. But to your other point,
Good point.
to your other point, this is something that's not lost on us. And actually, when you think about the team that we're ascended, even our deputy mayor for equity and human services, Faith, is actually coming to us from JP Morgan Chase. So we're building a team of folks that have the understanding of how we need to operate differently. And that's one of the number one things for me. Ted is very focused on equity and building Black wealth. And so is the city administrator. When we're even talking about that's when you think about why one of the first announcement that he made when he got here alongside me was redoing our procurement system, so that, as you know, having worked in City Hall in a very unique way, that it's not the procurement system. One was basically the same system it was before Bill Henry was working here, and we know how long ago that was. So if the system is the same as before the comptroller got here, we have to change it. And it does not create the fairness of opportunity for local businesses, for small businesses, for Black businesses, for Hispanic business, for women-owned businesses, for LGBTQ-owned businesses. And we have to build a procurement system that does that. And so that the city can show that it's valuing it's everybody. And we know that that's how we can create economic growth in our city, by working with those businesses and supporting them in their growth. And we will do that.
Thank you. I'm going to acknowledge that we've been joined by our colleague, Senator Murray Washington, who has just came out of voting session. And we're going to quickly go to Senator Sidnor, see if Ferguson has any questions, and then jump to our comptroller if possible.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I won't be joking and talking about how old Bill Henry is, since everybody else seems to be picking with them. But for the mayor, if you wouldn't mind, you mentioned the TR amendment, and for those of us who don't know what it is, or those who are listening, would you mind explaining the importance of that particular amendment?
Yeah, thank you. And again, I want to uplift our Senator Van Hollen. Basically, for the public listen, there's data that ATF has, or FBI has, or the state has, or BPD has, that you would think that your state senators and delegates and other folks will be able to see, that they can't see, and that we can't share with each other, based on some archaic rule that they had back in the day. Our Senator Van Hollen is pushing that, because this kind of breaking down that kind of wall creates the opportunity for collaboration and data sharing that we need when we're a city where 63% of our guns come from outside the state. But when you add in the surrounding counties, that's 84%, where most of the weapons overwhelmingly are coming from other places, and we can't share the data in the way that we need to. Even having it enter is great, but being able to share it amongst our partners around the region, in the state, and even across the country, because there was a case where there was a gun used in a homicide here that was used in an incident in New Jersey, and then using one in Virginia. So we have to understand the connectivity, that really this is a nationwide problem, but for us, of course, we're starting here in Baltimore.
And for those in the listening audience, it's spelled TIAHRT, the TIAHRT amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Senator Ferguson, you want to jump in here or can we go to our comptroller?
No, just great to see the mayor. Look forward to working on the many myriad of issues. Certainly, you're getting as much as anybody. We are getting the crime calls very regularly these days, and we've had some horrific incidents. But it's complex, as you've been saying, and look forward to trying to get to the root of it. And I do apologize ahead of time to the comptroller. I have to run at 6:30, so I apologize for missing part of your remarks, but appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you. And Mr. Comptroller, can we jump in here now? And Mr. Mayor, just want to say thank you for always.
Thank you. I'm actually headed to Senator Ferguson's district now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Comptroller, you're up. Floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't mind a little good-natured ribbing about being a little bit older than some of the rest of my colleagues. Why, it seems like just the other day, Wally Orlinsky was telling me outside the council chambers that you have to be careful when you come to City Hall really young, because it has a tendency to make you look older than you actually are. I myself actually just turned 28. But I'm sorry that the mayor and I didn't get to interact more. I wanted to thank the mayor for bringing up the Open Checkbook website, because that is something that was a big goal of mine also. I campaigned on the importance of it, but it is something that really needs to actually be done by the administration, because all of the data lives in the finance department. And so I've been very happy that the mayor has been supportive of that project, and I'm looking forward to seeing it roll out. In my first few months, I've focused really on building a strong team. Until recently, the comptroller's office, despite being a citywide position with significant responsibilities, lacked a real executive team to fully support the comptroller. So I have my deputy comptroller, Erica McClammy, who came over from the health department. She manages the Department of Audits, the Department of Real Estate, the Municipal Post Office, and the Municipal Telephone Exchange, all of which come under the comptroller. But then I also have my chief of staff, Celeste Amato, who came back to city government after running the Maryland Philanthropy Network. She had worked in the mayor's office in DPW, the BDC, HCD. Now she manages the rest of my executive team, including the administrative functions, IT, HR, as well as policy, communications, and the staff of the Board of Estimates itself. Another item that I focused on right out of the gate and have talked about it incessantly is modernizing the comptroller's office and many of its policies and procedures. In January, we ended a policy of using in-house staff to hand transcribe weekly meeting minutes verbatim, saving 10 to 20 hours of staff time each week. Last month, we ended a mandate for agencies to physically provide multiple paper copies for board submissions, which required Board of Estimates staff to retype information from board memos each week to create the meeting agenda. Now the office is working off of electronic copies of board memos. And the next step is storing these submissions in a public-facing database so that all this information can be easily searched at any time. As everyone knows, I ran on a platform of openness and transparency. I fully believe that if more people in Baltimore City really understood how city government was spending its money, we would have to spend it better. And I believe openness and transparency will lead to accountability, and accountability will actually create the better Baltimore that all of us want and deserve. One of the issues that all of us who are on the Board of Estimates have been doing a better job with is looking out for our minority and women-owned businesses. My office reviews all the items going before the Board of Estimates each week to make sure that all of the minority and women's business opportunity office goals are being reached and that goals are being established for every possible project. Since I've taken office, my staff and I have pushed back on agenda items with problematic compliance at roughly half of the agendas. And every time we've expressed these types of serious concerns about moving forward with a vendor or a contract, Mayor Scott has made sure that his agencies did the right thing even if it meant delaying or withdrawing the item. Each week, my staff and I meet with the MBU office, procurement, and individual agencies to ask, how are you meeting the project goals and what support do you need to get there? Going forward, though, what we need to be doing more of is ensuring that all of our vendors are compliant in reality and not just on paper. The city needs to be doing its due diligence better, ensuring that primes are not only contracting with, but actually paying their subcontractors, especially the ones that are minority and women owned. We are also reimagining the city's real estate functions, collaborating with the administration on a cross-agency, community-friendly approach to real estate. The charter gives the comptroller authority over disposition and acquisition of city-owned real estate, but over the years that mandate has been eroded as other agencies have created their own acquisition and disposition offices. This has spread out the responsibility and the blame for city-involved real estate deals, and it's perpetuated a culture of confusion around city land deals. My staff and I, we are committed to bringing that to an end, or we're going to go down swinging. We are also committed to moving away from paper processes for real estate transactions. This includes legislation in committee right now to move our property transaction histories to a database instead of, as the city code currently requires, keeping it in a well-bound leather book that's actually in the city code right now. We're going to be ending paper copies of contracts for Board of Estimates approval, and we're moving towards processing all real estate inquiries online. Making real estate purchases more accessible should help us to offload many of the 3,000 properties we control and move them into the hands of tax-paying property owners. And last but not least, we've been taking legislative steps to bring the Board of Estimates itself more into the public eye. At our request, legislation was introduced into the council setting thresholds for city contracts. For the last 11 years, the Board of Estimates has just been working off of a resolution of its own that set thresholds at expenditures over 50,000 or contracts over 25,000. We want to make the city spending more transparent, and we want to put those thresholds into the city code where it would require a further act of city council to increase or decrease them. And I'm sorry for, I apologize, I didn't jump into this the way I was supposed to by thanking you, Mr. Chair and Mr. President, and all of your colleagues for having me here. I know it's considered de rigueur to say that this is the best Senate delegation that I've ever worked with, but I got to be completely candid with you. This is the best Senate delegation I have ever seen in Annapolis, and I am so amazingly proud to be represented by you guys. I am working really hard to keep the profanity out of my speech. It is really wonderful to have all of you down there. I honestly, in all of my years of working with and in city government, there has been no time that I felt I could pick up a phone and reach out to every single member of the delegation and know that they'd pick up and that they'd have a real conversation with me about a substantive policy issue. And that is just amazing. And thank you all very much for your service. And if you have any questions in the minutes remaining before you guys have to go, I'm happy to chat.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. I'm going to go to Senator Washington, Senator Hayes, and then I'm going to Senator Carter. Senator Washington.
Thank you, Comptroller. Thank you, Chairman. We feel the same. And in fact, we're going to be working on, you're going to give us a couple amendments on that tax, looking at tax sale, a couple of notes. So we passed the bill with the idea that if you had a couple of things, a couple sentences that you think will clarify the role of the comptroller in the tax sale notification and tax sale process, we're happy to put those in. So
I would be happy to share that right now, the comptroller has really no role in tax sale itself. The comptroller gets tax sale certificates that basically didn't get sold at tax sale. If they didn't get sold, then the city gets to auction off the remaining certificates, and then basically we get the leftovers to deal with. Having watched the conversation around how to treat tax sale in a pandemic economy, I think it would be helpful to have another elected official directly involved in tax sale itself, because right now the director of finance, who reports only to the mayor, is calling all the shots that the mayor himself isn't calling.
Yep. Thank you.
Senator Hayes.
No, I want to thank Senator Washington. That was one of the things I wanted to be up in, but it sounds like there's, at least as it relates to these bills, as far as the current process and notification, it has no effect on the comptroller's office. Am I hearing you right?
Well, technically, the bill requiring us to send out the notification first class certified mail would be done by the municipal post office, which works for the comptroller, and would cost us somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 of extra mailing expense every year. And that's now this is where we're literally working off of the fiscal note in the bill itself. I didn't even have to go to Charmaine at MPO and check the total number of notices that were going out, but the projection was it's $108,000 in additional costs. Some of that could be recouped if I think it works out to about 4,800 of the tax sale certificates actually get redeemed, and those we could charge an administrative fee for, and we could recoup we could recoup the cost of the certified mail for those. But for the other 25,000 that don't get redeemed, we're just sending out a $3-something notice for each one, and we're not going to see a dime of that money come back. So that's basically $75,000 minimum out of pocket. And I don't know, that's like 2 recreation people, frankly, given what we pay them.
I think, Mr. Comptroller, I definitely want to follow up with you on this. This is the last week of session, and these bills are moving forward. We'd like to see something get passed. I know there's some of us that don't want to pass that cost on to the individuals that's affected and do want the city to eat it. So that's a conversation that we should probably have in short order, either sometime this evening or tomorrow. But a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention because we're running out of time. In the exploration of procurement, if you're not, but I'm sure you are, given your knowledge of city government, I would definitely encourage yourself and the mayor and those who are working on this procurement stuff to look at the emergency and blanket contracts, which oftentimes don't go before the Board of Estimates, but are already in place and often used, and they use the excuse as emergency contract, thereby it doesn't have to be competitively bid. So that's usually a huge loophole, and it was explored this year when the Senate president appointed the Inclusion and Equity Work Group. The other thing, if you could keep this body at least up to date on as things evolved around roads and real estate, because it is a very confusing function in city government, but there's so many opportunities that exist there that haven't really been explored. But I believe that that's another way that we could use the leverage of the city's asset to effectuate and facilitate wealth, especially in communities of color.
I'm sorry that I didn't make a point of fitting that into my initial remarks. Some of you probably knew or had worked with Walter Horton, who had been the longtime head of real estate. He had served, I want to say, 19 years in real estate and 45 working for the city altogether. And he literally retired last week. We had hired Andy Frank to be his deputy like a month and a half ago, because he didn't have a deputy and he really needed one. So we really kind of lucked out that the circumstances that required Walter to resign kind of abruptly and take retirement left us with somebody in place who actually has the experience to step right into that role. But we're going to have to do a very serious search now to find Andy a new deputy director. But I'm happy to keep you guys in the loop. In fact, I'll be very candid with you. I'll probably be bothering you so much you'll consider it nagging. I was being respectful of session and not oversharing right now while you guys are finishing up your work. But yeah, I got plenty of stuff that I need help on, and I'm happy to share how we're moving forward. We've gotten past the first 100 days, and as Senator Washington knows, she was one of the co-chairs for my transition team. We had a whole bunch of recommendations for what we could try to get accomplished right away. I think we did pretty good with that. But we have a whole second set that we are trying to get done in the first year. And that work is now really beginning in earnest. And some of it would work better if there were clearer paths at the state level for how some of these things like tax sale, how those work. And when we get into your off session, I'm looking forward to having some conversations about how we can prep for the next session and make those legislative realities happen.
Yeah. Senator Carter, I want to try to get you in with the final question. I believe you had your hand raised.
Thank you. You'll be happy to know, Mr. Chair and Mr. Controller and everyone, I don't really have a question. I just to reiterate what Senator Washington said, that we feel the same way about you. I really appreciate and look forward to your commitment to transparency. What Senator Hayes said, these emergency procurements and low-cost procurements under 50,000 have been a problem for a long time. There's no reason in the world why the small minority-owned businesses can't benefit from these. So I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation. And then finally, I just wanted to, give you a little bit of support. I've probably been in City Hall as long as you, in different capacity or not. I worked for the 5th District when it was Hall Reeves Inspector back in the day. I don't know if you know.
Oh, the Golden Girls. That's right.
Anyway, it's great to see you.
Good to see you also. And I am looking forward to working closely with all of you. I think we've got a good opportunity in front of us to really move Baltimore forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Just colleagues, I know that we have to get our way to Democratic Caucus, so we'll start closing. Just want to say thank you to Mayor Scott and Comptroller Henry for you both, for your leadership and service to our city. We know that you are committed to lifting each and every Baltimorean to the highest height that you possibly can. I think I speak for the entire delegation when I say that you have our support in changing Baltimore for the better while professionalizing our city government. We look forward to our continued partnership. As we race to the finish line of this legislative session, want the listening audience to know that we are working for Baltimore. As the state's largest city, Baltimore is the heart and economic engine of Maryland. We know this, so we are committed to bringing home resources that invest in the needs of our communities. If this time together wasn't long enough for you, please feel free to continue the conversation by connecting with your senators via social media. The Baltimore City Senate delegation is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You may also visit us on the web at bcsdelegation.com. We are counting down the days until Sani die. Everyone have a blessed evening, and thank you again, Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you. Shout out to Cody.
Shout out to Cody.
Good night. Good night.